introduce, I've already introduced you to our screenwriter Sophia and to our director Raylan. I would like to introduce you to the cinematographer, James Falcone. James is a senior. Feature film and television major and has garnered multiple awards for narrative and documentary films. During his time at Ryder, he has worked on over 50 independent productions and served as a cinematographer and editor for Muscle Memory. Brianna Bradley is our producer. Brianna is a senior film and TV major from Newark, Delaware, and the producer of Muscle Memory. She's worked on short films throughout her time at Ryder, as well as being the visual designer for The Fire, a Ryder main stage play. I'd like to introduce actor Billy Giamo, who plays Billy is a character actor who has brought life to a diverse set of heroes and villains in projects that explore the supernatural, family relationships, aging and death, women's issues, and law enforcement. Wow, what a resume. You're just like every man, right? He has appeared in commercial and artistic roles in both mainstream and independent film, television, web, and stage production. So welcome to Ryder. Finally, Caden Knight. Caden plays a young Lawrence at Stephen College. Caden is a graduate of Rider University's musical theater program. Born and raised in Austin, Texas, Caden has now made Philadelphia home and can be seen acting, singing, and fighting all over the Northeast. So, welcome. Question, I guess my first question, which isn't part of what I thought I would be asking, I'm going to ask Billy, if that broken arm is a result of the scene in which you trashed Dr. Kilday's apartment. And I think, let's make sure all the microphones are on, okay?
Does this thing work? Yeah. Actually, I'm not really injured. I'm just acting. The truth is, right before production, I fell. Right before production, I fell and I tore a rotator cuff. So these people were nice enough to sort of adjust things so that you probably couldn't tell on screen.
Oh, really? Okay, that's very, very interesting. So first question, of course, is for our screenwriter, Sophia. If you could tell us a couple of things. First of all, what inspired the screenplay, but also you said you wanted us to think about things. So I'd like you to maybe tell us what kinds of ideas and or questions you hope the film raises.
Yeah, well, what inspired the film was, first and foremost, Raylan. He brought all of us together, kind of like assembling the Avengers, and so he was like, I want to write a story, listen to this cool story that happened to me. I was like, oh, cool. I have something similar to that. I worked in an old folks home for a year, so I had a lot of close relationships with people who suffered from degenerative diseases, but also I've had family members who have been affected by it as well. So I just kind of took things that I've seen, and we also thought a mirror would be cool. So that's kind of, it was a combination of real life experiences and how we wanted it to translate on screen, As for questions that we wanted to talk about, the main one was identity and what is identity and whether or not it stays constant throughout your life or whether it changes. And James is a philosophy minor, so he was like, ask the hard questions, and I was like, no. Went back and forth a lot about that, and that's kind of why we ended up having two daughters, is because we're like, well, we don't want to stick to one side. We want to talk about how some people do believe that even when your father gets who you are, it's still the same person, and then there's other people who would rather think, no, that's a different person, and I still have memories of someone who used to know me, but they're not here anymore. So it was kind of just hitting all the bases.
Those are really interesting questions. And in my own life, my mother suffered from dementia. And what I noticed, and I had a very dear friend who did as well, and what I noticed about both of them was that while the common sense elements vanished, the basic framework of humanity remained very much the same. So my friend would laugh even though he didn't understand the jokes. When everybody else was laughing, he was laughing with them. My mother likewise, even though she didn't understand the logic of what we were talking about, she still enjoyed talking. And enjoyed the interactions with people. So I'm wondering, Sophia, in your experience working with people who were compromised in this way, what your own experience was and how you tried to maybe a little bit more about each of the sisters and how where they're coming from.
Well, I think everyone has good days and bad days, and I think Lainey was someone who likes to hold on to the good days and was really more so championing hope, whereas Renee likes to see things from a realist point of view. And why get your hopes up when you know that it's only going to end one way? Anything else like you said?
Yeah, and I mean the whole idea though of the person maybe losing certain aspects of logic and reality, but still retaining a sense of humanity. I wonder if you saw that in your own work with those patients.
Yeah, definitely. I'd have people who would be very nice to me and give me hugs and tell me that my haircut reminded them of their daughter. And then, the next day they'd be like having like a war flashback and be threatening me with a knife. So you just kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt and realize that they're acting on the same amount of information as you are. They don't have any more grasp of the situation than you do. I guess that's where I mostly saw it.
Okay, great. And now Raylan, as director, it almost sounds like you asked Sophia to write you a screenplay, that you were the one who initiated this project. I wonder if you could talk about that whole process and how the two of you worked collaboratively as the screenplay evolved and then as you thought about how you were going to direct it.
It's really quiet. Like I said, me and James are always sitting around talking about philosophy because that's kind of his thing. And it was around that time, I think it was like last February when we were editing our last project. My great aunt came to stay with us, right? She's like this tiny, frail little old Southern lady. She has dementia, like up the wazoo. So it was pretty bad. Like every 20, 30 minutes, she'd be like, are you my baby? Is this Raylan? I had to like introduce myself to her. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, this lady's just gone. It is what it is, fact of disease. But one night in particular, I remember I came home and she was cleaning the kitchen, which, whatever, clean the kitchen. But just in the way that she was doing it, she was alert, her posture was different, her eyes were focused, and she was cleaning faster than I'd ever seen. And she was multitasking. She was doing 2-3 tasks at the same time. And so I watched her do it, and I watched her do it again and again. And by, I think around the third time, she'd cleaned throughout the entire kitchen. It was the cleanest I'd ever seen it. There's nothing left to do. She starts looking around. You tell she's a little bit nervous. She starts playing with her hands. And I literally saw her shrink down. And I saw her eyes unfocus, and she was back to, that daze. And my aunt saw that, and she grabbed her by the hand, and she took her in the living room. We'd been sitting down, and there were pillows that were disordered. And right when she had something to do again, she immediately locked back in. She focused up. And it was like if she was a different person. And so like that, that hooked me. I'd been thinking about that ever since I saw it. And James was blabbing about some kind of thing with identity so big in my mind. And I remember the play that me and Rebo worked on, The Fire. Dr. Dominguez knew I had been interested in directing, so she let me sit in on the actors, doing their table work. And I was watching them come in out of character, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's kind of like oh my God. So like that second, I excused myself from the rehearsal, and I literally ran across campus to James. He was up in the studio, and I'm out of breath. I'm like, dude, I have an idea. And he's like, hold on, let me put it on my phone. So he recorded it. And I just pitched him up the entire concept of the thing right there about, boxer. I picked boxing because, I think it's maybe like the most filmic sport. It's all about rhythm. It's all about motion, and also it's an art form. You know, I mean, at the same time, it's a savage combat sport where you're, you know, close knock someone out, but at the same time, it's very beautiful, it's very graceful. And so, like, having all those ideas, I was like, well, this is a really good idea, but I'm not good enough to write it. So I went to the best writer I knew, Sophia, and you know, we all sat down as a group, and I was like, let me get Brianna too, because I don't know how to organize anything. And so once we had this group, it just became a matter of, okay, Sophia, here's the idea, and you've seen it. You know, her mind is just so incredible. So we kind of just let her work through that and find the daughters and find stuff like the mirror. And I think it turned out really well.
So James, the philosophy minor, Brianna, the producer. Can you talk about your own contribution beyond the cinematography or the production elements to the thought processes and themes and ideas that are presented in the film?
Yeah, so apparently I blab about philosophy a lot. I do, and I particularly like discussing identity, and identity I think is so linked to memories. If all of our memories were wiped clean, would we be the same people that we are today? And so dementia is a really interesting way to explore that, and it's something that all of us have experienced in several different ways, or just different degenerative diseases. Besides me and Raylan's initial conversations where we kind of represented unique views, I think mine more closely aligns with Renee, who was the blonde one, and Raylan's, and later we found out, that others, Sophia as well, took Lainey's approach a little bit more. And so just through this debate process, we all got together and we sat down, and I asked everyone, okay, let's just define identity in a sentence, and we all came up with very different sentences, and then we had long arguments about about what it is to be somebody or to be something, and how memory is tied up with that. And Brie could say more on that, maybe.
So I think one part that I brought into it, before we even had the whole identity conversation, Raylan was like, Brie, I want you on this. This is the idea, and he pitched it to me. And when I first started figuring out what kind of films I wanted to work on, I didn't have it fully made in a sentence, but I knew that I wanted to make meaningful media. And I wanted to make film, content, whatever was that really reached and resonated with people, because that's what made me fall in love with film in the first place. So I think, same thing, just sharing ideas and having those debates, as much as it was fun and bickering back and forth, I think it really helped develop a relationship with us as a team, as a crew, and then also what we wanted to say with the movie. Did we want to stick on our side? Did we not? And we decided we're not going to. We're going to show both. And similarly, having experience with family members with dementia, and then also seeing the family that was the caregivers, or the family that was affected by it, and how to do those limited visits, bringing that aspect to it as well, showing all dimensions of it.
Thank you. I want to turn to our actors now, Billy and Caden. I'm curious not only about your working with the filmmakers and with the script and the material, but also working with each other. How were you able to create a consistent sense of character from the young Lawrence to the older Lawrence? I'm sure there must have been a lot of collaboration between you. I wonder if you guys could talk about working with the filmmakers and then with each other.
Well, actually, I started working on it and had never really met Billy before. And James and Raylan and everyone had already been working only one day with you and the others. And so they were the ones really to keep me on track, at least, because I was only filming for 2 days. And one of the days after I had filmed every scene, basically, I got to work with Billy in the room. And I feel like we kind of independently came to an even place where we agreed on a lot of things without having to talk about it. We had a single meeting, maybe, like on Zoom or something, just to talk about he's left-handed and what the struggle is. And I think since the crew and the writing and James and Raylan had such a tight vision of what they wanted that they were able to kind of give it to both of us in a way that was palatable and made it easy for us to work even independently from each other. I don't know how you feel about it. You got to work with more actors than I did.
Well, yeah, I would, there wasn't that much that was common, I don't think, between Caden and I. But I feel that because the direction was so precise, although it did allow us to be somewhat creative, I mean, it was easy. It was, I kind of knew Caden before I knew Caden. And by the way, I don't know if you young people know this, but can you stand up for a minute? When you get older, you shrink a little bit. But not this much.
We put him on a box.
So I was on a box a lot of times. So, anyway, but yeah, so I really, and it wasn't just the directing. This whole team, I mean, I've been on independent films, I've been on student films, I've been on TV productions. I've never seen four people that were so aligned on what they wanted to produce. I mean, it was, I told my wife on the way here, I miss these people because they worked so well together. So that's, I think, why
Things like posture, I mean, you mentioned the left-handed, right-handed thing, so much, there was quite a bit of consistency. So, I think it's believable that the two of you are Lawrence, from younger to older, so.
And I was really handsome when I was young, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were.
You still got it.
And you've
You're
aged
married.
so beautifully. Yes. So I want to turn our attention to one major motif in the movie, which is the shattered mirror, which we, of course, can relate to the shattering of identity and shattered identity itself. I'm wondering, first, Sophia, how and why this did become a motif for you as you conceived it in your screenplay.
Well, I think it was Raylan who had mentioned that he thinks of memory as like puzzle pieces, things that you collect and put together that shape your identity. And then we had just watched, I think, Chicago, and so there's a really beautiful mirror sequence
Yes.
in the song Roxy, and we were like, oh, we need mirrors and we need empty spaces. Shout out Pink Floyd. And I was like, well, what if we just break a mirror and those are our puzzle pieces? And so that's kind of where we went with it. And that idea of like, when you break a mirror and you put it back together, even if you have all the pieces and you put it like perfectly all in line, there's going to be microscopic pieces of glass that aren't there anymore. And when those are accumulated together, it adds up, and how much of your memory is still gone. Even if you have all the pieces and you think that you put it back together, it's never going to be the same as the mirror you started out with. And so are you still the same person that you started out with? And that's just kind of, it evolved from there.
Mm-hmm. And James, you were cinematographer and editor, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let me ask you about the mirror, the mirror sequences. And clearly the editing was very fragmentary, as the images themselves are. But also the cinematography, you really created even greater sense of fragmentation through the way you used shot composition and all of that. Maybe just tell us a little bit about what you were thinking about as you were putting those together.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to edit is because I had a clear vision of what these fragmented parts should look like, and it was really hard to express. And so I just was like, let me get my hands on it. And I think that was some of my favorite shooting that we did throughout the entire process. One part that I particularly like when he puts the mirror back up and you finally see that it's all shattered. We really wanted to convey like all of the, like what Sophia said, all the little bits and pieces that can't be put back together. So doing very close-up shooting, and getting all the little microcosms of glass that aren't there anymore. Also, it was very fun in the beginning of the film when they have their boxing sequence, these two.
Yes.
It was, we framed it as if they were fighting each other, a la Gollum's conversation from Lord of the Rings, where one side is looking that way and they're both fighting each other. But it was definitely a lot of fun, and mirrors always look great. We got a smoke machine which looks great, and I was just loving it because it's so fun to shoot.
And Raylan, you want to talk a little bit about that whole motif from your perspective as director?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what they said. It's kind of like the idea, like it's a mirror to the soul. So he's looking at himself, and I think it's also cool that we get to see the two of them interact. I'm thinking of the one shot at the end when the mirror's all shattered, and you can see both of them through. And originally the idea for that shot was we were gonna film two of them and like composite it. But then and this is at the end. This was our last day of shooting too. It was like one of the last shots we did. And James just goes, hold on, let me cook, right? And he has him go stand, and he's able to get that shot practical. And it was just like stuff like that where we were always on our feet and thinking about how we could really use it best. I mean, for the glass sequences where he's looking through, for a couple of shots that we had Caden do is that we had him sit in front of the glass and we read through the girl's entire conversation. And so the idea was, if Lawrence sitting on the couch and he's listening to them, in his interior, as he's putting the mirror together, how does he react to what they're saying? Because, I mean, you watch their argument, they have this big explosive argument, and something that we found when we were doing a lot of research was that a lot of times, due to no fault of their own, just stress the situation, people who are, taking care of someone who has a gender disease will kind of talk about them as if they're not there, or as if they can't hear them, but they can.
Yes.
And so we kind of had them go through that. It was like, when you hear the girl say this, how does that make you react? And we found that it kind of made the story flow better. But it was a great process for all of us.
And
I'm sorry, can I just add about that shot that we read through the script for Caden, and we just read the entire thing. We rolled the camera on him to get his reactions for any part of the film. He gave such an incredible acting performance that we ended up using all over, just real, genuine emotion. It was absolutely incredible for everyone in the room to watch.
And Caden and Billy, were you guys, is that the only, there was one scene toward the end when you seemed to be in the same room together. Is that the only time when the two of you were present with each other in the film?
Just earlier that day, I think we did the scene where we were looking over each other for the mirror. We were both in it.
Yes.
And we took turns doing the fight in the mirror, so we weren't actually looking at each other. We just threw a bunch of punches at the mirror that Raylan was calling out. And then we sat on the couch next to each other. I looked at you sweatily a couple times.
The rest was history.
And then he left, and then I stayed behind.
But what's interesting about that moment to me is it's one of the few moments that isn't fragmented or fractured in the film. We actually see the two of you in the shot together. It's not there's not a lot of frantic editing, as there is rightfully in most of the film. And I'm wondering how that stillness or stasis in that moment functions for any of you as actors, for you as directors, cinematographers, what you had in mind, because stylistically it's very different from most of the rest of the film.
It's funny because I'd forgotten that we shot that scene.
Uh-huh.
And the way it panned, I think, was really, it was sort of, when I did it, when I read it, when I acted it, I kind of felt I didn't quite get it, actually. But the way it ended up, I now view it as young me gave me permission to just go wild and just say goodbye. And that's kind of how I viewed it in the final edit. So.
Yeah, for me, I think that's awesome. I also forgot that we did that shot until it happened. But a lot of my shooting was more frantic stuff. They had me, they only used it for 2 seconds, but they had me do 100 push-ups, like curls with the thing, punching the bag until I was aching for the week. I'd never had a better workout. But, so I think that when we got to that scene, it was the stillest I had ever been in the whole shoot. And it was also the first time that I truly acted with him. Because other times we were, you know, either not looking at each other or just were the same at the same time. But this was a time when I did get to give you permission, because I had been going crazy and I hadn't seen you let loose at all. And so it was fun to kind of encourage that, even if silently. But yeah, because I've been in like the black box or whatever. I saw Raylan trying to get out, that I punched the ground at one point. When we were doing like they had me for like so long looking at the pieces of glass on the ground, and they were just like, go through it, go, you know, and I'm doing emotions and riding the wave, and I'm like I'm punching the glass when I get like angry at it, because I'm just like getting more angry. And they didn't use that, which is okay. I got blood all over my hand, not real blood, but yeah, so I was like, yeah, I wanted him to do it too. Maybe not punch glass, but have fun.
But no, kind of what they said. I mean, the beginning part, like the whole sequence at the beginning, is all very emotional. The jazz is playing, it's bumping, right? It's, you know, going through a montage, right? And then for the majority of the movie, when we're watching him in the house, we're kind of seeing him, you know, back. He's kind of lost. He's putting the mirror together, but he's also trying to piece together the argument that's happening in front of him. He's kind of a spectator. So for that moment at the end, right, he puts the mirror back together, he flips it up, and like Sophia said, when you put glass back together and you see those cracks, I think it's a moment of frustration for him. But it's also a moment where he's searching for an answer, right? And I think that's where we came up with the title Muscle Memory. It's like some things are just like intrinsic to you, something within you. So at a certain point, sometimes all he has left is the boxing. It's something that remembers, it's something that's imprinted on. So he was able to grab that.
And you kind of answered another question that I had, which was about the title of the film, right? We've heard that term, muscle memory, but you're actually using it, you know, if you could just elaborate a little bit more about that. You just sort of started chatting about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's the idea that, like, with my great aunt, right, she didn't remember who I was, and, you know, she forgot what state she was in half the time, but there were certain things that were intrinsic to her. She was a caretaker. She basically raised my grandmother, because my grandmother's mother died at a young age, and so it was stuff like that. It was cleaning the house, taking care of food, stuff that was kind of intrinsic to who she is as a person, that she was just able to lock right back into. And when she was doing that, it was as if she was there again, right? So it's the same idea for Billy. You know, in those moments where he's boxing, when he's doing the montage at the beginning, or even when he's destroying the house at the end, for those small moments, I think for him he's at a sort of peace, because he's doing something that feels natural to him. That's core to his being. Being a boxer, not Billy, I said Billy, not Lawrence. Being a boxer is who Lawrence is.
Very good, thank you. You talked about the opening sequence, and I think that is a masterful sequence. You know, as masterful as the mirror sequence is, the way we move back and forth from your home, your apartment, to those beautifully lit boxing sequences. It's really wonderful, and I'm thinking too about, you know, and I guess this is something I don't understand in the film, and I want to, you know, talk about the editing and everything in that sequence. But Willie Green is the trainer, right? And of Caden.
That's Danny. Danny's the trainer.
Oh, Danny, right,
He's the guy
okay.
who's supposed to fight.
And Willie Green is the person that he was supposed to be fighting.
Yeah. In his mind, like
In his mind.
actually training for that big fight. against
Right.
Willie.
So we see in the newspaper that Willie Green has died, and this is an April 2025 date on the newspaper, right? So are we supposed to, is this, I guess I just want to understand the sequence, because when I saw the film the first time, I just took it as a literal moment in the present, right? That you were reading this newspaper and then panicking. But in retrospect, am I correct in saying that we are supposed to be, this is a kind of memory, but kind of time is all screwed up because it's the present, but it's really, you know, it's really you who's having this memory of yourself at this moment of panic. I wonder if any of you, Sophia or Raylan or you know, anybody who can, kind of clarify that a little bit for me.
Yeah, so in our heads, it was the opening was the older version of Lawrence, but we wanted to portray to the audience what it was like to in his head, where he still thinks maybe he's a young man, and why he would be confused seeing Willie Green dying, because he's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to fight this guy tomorrow.
Right,
But in
right.
real life, or in the reality, it is that it is the older version of Lawrence who, when the mirror breaks, we actually see him fall for a split second. The whole opening sequence is in his head, thinking that he is a younger man.
Uh-huh. And there are certain mise-en-scène cues that you use, like the old-fashioned radio, the music that's playing on the radio, which is of an older generation, I guess we might say. And so even though the kitchen itself is very contemporary, we have these cues that suggest that we're moving in a different time zone to some extent. Yeah, was that?
Yeah, I can add on. So I think part of it, I guess, for like the set design that we were thinking of is, at least I know in like my almost home, there was still some modern things that she had, but there was still like those older like relics that she like cherished, and that was like the things that kept her like almost in her constant, or I guess in this case like Lawrence's constant, like having the radio going. You know, he always has his cup of coffee in the morning, so kind of to show like the blend of those two worlds that he has.
Yeah, yeah. Did anybody want to add anything to that?
For me, anyway, for me, doing it, I think the kind of running idea is I was trying to be like I was in your head. It was you doing all this. I doubt you were jump roping in your kitchen. I do believe you burned an egg, but I think that it's not until, he's just going about his life. Maybe he burns eggs every other week or something, but it wasn't until he read the headline that he starts to notice something's off. Like when you are in a dream and you don't realize until you check your watch and nothing makes sense, and then suddenly everything starts to domino down. And to me, it's just like, he must have fought that boxer 50, 60 years ago, whenever it was. And so seeing that, like, him die, like, why would a young guy be worried that this 70, that says he died at like 60 something? 67. And like, why would he care about that until, it's a short film, so it doesn't take that many minutes to find out why. But to me, I was just trying to go about my day and assuming that he thought he was as well.
Okay, and two quick questions, then we're going to open it up to everybody. So we talked about the opening sequence, and one of the things I think we also learn, if we think about somebody like Saul Bass, who did the title designs for Hitchcock's Psycho, is that right from the very start, the title design cues the audience into something significant about the film. So I'm thinking about the font that you chose to represent the titles, and we hadn't talked about your composer, Joe Brown. I didn't know it was an original score because the version I saw last night didn't have the credits at the end. How did you work with Joe? How did you choose the music? And how did you choose the design of the titles?
I'm going to answer the font question first, Jim.
Sure. We all got together in a room and we went to Adobe Fonts and we said, let's find a really cool one. And then we found a whole bunch of them. I think one of the reasons that I like this one, although I think we all came to a consensus, is it is kind of indicative of like a boxing scoreboard, one of those flippy things, I don't know what you call them. And scoreboard, I guess so. But it was impactful. We knew we wanted something impactful. We knew we wanted something to immediately set the tone as like, this is going to be a movie about boxing, and then pull the rug out from under them a little bit later when we discover it's a movie about dementia, and this is really sad.
I have to jump in though. It also strikes me that the font is also about disappearance.
Yes.
Okay, and like identity, ultimately, like things falling apart kind of a little bit.
Yeah, completely, yes. We faded in the font when he was standing there, posing up, and we wanted it to be sort of translucent and spread out. So there's a lot of different, like, almost graffiti-like speckles all over.
Speckles, yes, speckles. I think the speckle part is what got me, because I think it works very well with the themes of the film.
I agree.
And what about Joe? Can we talk about the music?
Yeah, unfortunately he couldn't make it today because he had a gig, but Joe Brown might go. I love jazz, I always have. I try to put it into everything that we pretty much do. And I don't know, I think that jazz is unique, and I think it works particularly well with film because, again, it's all predicated on rhythms. and movement. And so when the drums start jumping in at the beginning, and you're getting into it, and then the doom 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 comes in, right? It kind of changes tone easily. And so considering that, the first thing I said to James Bishara was like, dude, we gotta get jazz. And before, and it's really hard to get music yourself, but thank God my uncle's a jazz drummer. And so I went to him and I kind of gave him a description, synopsis before we had even gotten a primary cut done. And he just said, don't worry, I got you. And he kind of gave us what became kind of the skeleton for what the score would become, right? It's when he's lucid, when he has those moments where he's feeling right, you have that bumping, post-bop jazz, and then it kind of devolves into something where he's playing incomplete chords. You're getting a lot of bass where you're not getting a complete piece, which I think is kind of indicative of Lawrence's process. But that was my first time working with someone to actually develop a score for something I made, and I think it was a great process because we really kind of got to find just like a little bit more of the story in the score.
And my last question actually involves Dr. Kildare, because in a sense you basically trashed one of the rooms in his house, and I'm wondering, how you managed to not really trash it, and Dr. Kildare, how you and your wife are still married.
Funny you asked that. I'm in Florida right now, and I'm here. No, we managed to survive the production, but I will say, when they first started the project, Brianna sends me over the production schedule. She said, can we use your house for a couple of shoots? I'm like, sure. So the first day was a 6 a.m. crew call, and they wrapped at 10:30, I think, at night. So, that was a tough one to run by the wife. But it worked out okay. I think one night, I have a great memory of the film. It's not connected with what you saw here tonight, but after they were done, I made everybody eat dinner. Remember that night? That was great. They really were like, these stars.
Not there.
I got water and chips.
You should have stuck around, fellas. But no, they're a pleasure to work with.
I mean, there were things that actually did get broken. It wasn't just a little bit of editing, right?
Yes.
When they left the house, I'm sorry, just one thing. When they left the house, everything was exactly the same except you left the screen out in the front room, which my wife complained about, which is hilarious because if she had seen that room, she hadn't seen it yet, and when she sees that room, that'd be funny.
Brianna, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was very grateful when Kildare said initially, yeah, you can use my house. And then we were looking through the script and I was writing down a list of all of the props and all the furniture. And I was like, we have to invade Kildare's house for a week. Like, that's the only way this is gonna get done. And so for the trophy room was actually, I guess, a second front living room. So majority of the furniture, like the big trophy case, lugging that in, moving the couch. We had to take the door off a couple times. Like, that was a whole thing. But actual breaking in the living room, we made sure that we got a lot of props that we knew were breakable, or that we wanted to highlight to have them break. And we made sure that we knew which items were Kildare's and which was ours. So we very meticulously checked to make sure, okay, this is gonna break, this is gonna break. And we went over it, Raylan went over it, James went over, I think we all went over it a couple of times, all right, this is what we're thinking, this is how we're gonna map it out. Because it's actually the destruction scene is one shot. So everybody's outside silent, and James and Raylan and Billy are in there. Well, wait, I don't even know. Raylan wasn't there. Raylan wasn't even there. And James and Billy in there, and we're just waiting outside. And then we get a knock, and we're like, we did it! And I was like, yay! And then we went in, and we're like, okay, now we gotta figure out, we gotta make sure we didn't actually break any of Kildare's things. And we did it, so.
Great.
I'll also add that Caden so generously brought us crash maps because he's a fight choreography guy. We'll get him after this. We'll get him after this. Yeah, we will. So his whole floor was padded because he had a lot of stuff while we had lamps break. We had stuff, clocks, all that stuff.
Shout out our lovely PAs who helped us move that 80-pound TV under the ground twice. Yeah, I mean, Greg moved that couch at least 3 times, so thank you, Greg.
Why don't the PAs stand up for a second?
Everybody stand up, I know you're there. Thank you, David.
So let's open things up to whoever has questions. Nick?
Oh yeah, I have a question. What advice do you guys have for people who want to be filmmakers but don't know where to start and have zero experience in the field?
Billy, our most experienced.
Well, I'm not really a filmmaker. I'm kind of an actor, but from a practical standpoint, not from a training and education standpoint, but from a practical standpoint, I would guess you just have to kind of do it. But I think we should ask some of these folks over here, what's the best way to get started?
I think it might be interesting to come back to that question after we hear some questions about the movie itself, and then we can come back maybe and ask our main filmmaker here, Dr. Stern, to answer that question since he is our experienced filmmaker. Yes, yeah.
I have two questions. My first one is about the worm scene. I'm wondering why a worm, if that was already written in the script, and how you guys went about blocking that. My second question is, how can I get that boxing poster that's Kaden and Raylan?
It's in my house. I'm keeping it forever. Bye bye.
Everyone asks about the worm, and my short answer is that I hate character introductions. And everyone's like, it was the third draft, like, we need a character introduction. And I was like, no, instead, worm. And it does make sense, kind of. It was the whole idea that Lainey's, she's a caretaker, but more importantly, she sees life as precious, even in something as small as an earthworm. And it was sunny out, and the earthworm was on stone, and stone gets hot, and she put her hand over it and provided shade. Why didn't she just pick it up and put it in the grass, you're asking? I see your face. Because that doesn't look good, and we're making a movie.
But like on the worm, because when Norm wrote it, I was like, wait. But then, sorry, Sophia. So when Sophia wrote it, I was like, well, I don't get it. But then when you think about it, right? It's the idea like if Lawrence is the worm, like she sees that he's struggling in the position, and her first instinct isn't to grab him and take him and put him someplace else, but to kind of provide that shade. Because I mean, the worm was only there because it was raining or the ground was wet and it came out, and so she's kind of keeping it in its place, kind of protected, which I thought was sweet. Good job, Sophia.
See, I view it as if she was gonna move the worm, she would put Lawrence in the home. That's how I view it.
Huh, interesting. Did we answer both of your questions? Or what was the second question?
The second part of the worm scene was, how do you guys go about blocking that? Like, because Renee goes to sit down and then she asks her, like, are you okay? Or something like that. Was that already written, or did you guys, like, say, like, worm scene, let's figure out how to...
It was very different because in the script, the house had hallways, but Kildare has a beautiful open layout home, and so we couldn't do that. And they were like, let's go outside, and so we went outside, and then we sat for about an hour being like, how do we block this? It's so sunny. And then, well,